Denver's citywide curfew, unprecedented in recent memory, is now being extended through Friday as the city prepares for the potential of a fifth night of violence. The daytime today has seen more protests, calm, joined by the police chief himself even, in memory of George Floyd, that man in Minnesota who was killed by police. The chief in Denver made it clear to us today that that curfew, now 9 p.m., is only being enforced against the people who are clashing with police in the streets.
Citywide curfew is truly meant to focus on the individuals that are contributing to the destruction of property, the damage to business owners that are truly just coming out of the heels of this pandemic.
Police chief had suggested that outsiders were coming into Denver to start trouble and agitate. Similar claims in Minnesota were debunked by fact checkers. DPD tonight gave us details on the 284 people arrested on the streets. 6 of them are known to live out of state. 6 of 284. Now, many are listed in DPD's records as address unknown, and our team will be going through them, comparing them to public records, but wanted to give you DPD's information just as soon as it got to us. Denver police tell us that they seized guns and tactical gear from 2 men who came to the protests on Friday. 9 Wants to Know investigator Jeremy Hohola says one of the men, Chevy McGee, is part of a far-right extremist movement that is preparing for civil war in America. McGee told Jeremy Hohola that he didn't break any laws. Want to give you a live look from Sky 9 of the protest activity in Denver tonight. Again, these are the daytime protests that not only are permitted by the city, they're welcomed. The mayor has said that he supports people peacefully taking to the streets during the day to express their views on police brutality and race relations in America. For a time, the police chief was walking with protesters today. They are near 16th and Welton. And as we have seen before, if folks are moving, then everything is generally copacetic. It is later on that stuff gets ugly. They laid there, like George Floyd laid there, minute after minute. If there's one picture you remember from this past weekend in Denver, let this be the one. A huge crowd telling Denver, Colorado, and America that centuries of violence against Black Americans must end. The daytime crowds march and rally with the support of city leaders, and police keep their distance. But each of the last 4 days has turned into this. Tear gas, pepper rounds, rocks and bottles in the air, smashed glass, fires. Denver police moved in hours earlier than usual on Saturday. Tear gas flew 4 hours before the curfew started at 8 p.m. By 6 p.m., police were moving on the crowds outside the Capitol, where they had been hours before with the backing of the city. I asked the police chief why. What changed? He said his officers were only responding to violence from the crowd. By 8 p.m., some in the crowd had built a barricade in front of the Capitol. Minutes into the curfew, the tear gas went flying, police advanced, smashed the barricade, and had that crowd on the run. That left this as the lingering image long into the night. Each night. Tonight is night 5. Denver Police Chief Paul Pazin told our Steve Steger that he has seen the videos that you have likely seen circulating on social media. Videos of officers in Denver using force against protesters who are not being violent toward police. And the chief promises that internal affairs will take a look.
We just wanted to kind of see history being made, be out there.
On Friday night, around 8:30, Alejandro Gort and his partner were in their car, stuck in traffic in front of the state capitol. As police cleared the lawn, Alejandro's camera rolled as an officer pepper sprayed a man taking photos.
Didn't tell him to move, didn't say anything, just started spraying that guy with pepper spray.
And then turned the canister on them.
Leaned over the sunroof, and I put my phone up there, and he literally just started spraying pepper spray in the car as we were driving off. All of a sudden, your eyes start watering up. I mean, people have experienced this, so they know. Eyes watering up, can't see, can't breathe. He could have gave a warning, said, if you don't move this car right now, I'm going to spray you with pepper spray. None of that.
That video, one of a few online this weekend, raising questions about force. One shows a Denver officer firing a pepper ball at a man filming them on Saturday. Another shows officers shooting pepper balls at a car after a man inside yells at them that his girlfriend is pregnant. None of them show any obvious signs of aggressive provocation, which Denver's use of force rules require.
Some of the snippets that I've seen, I'm concerned about. We need to make sure that we address those.
Denver Police Chief Paul Pazin said he's asked for internal affairs investigations into the videos and acknowledged these moments make it harder to restore the trust these protesters want.
And anything that is out of policy, we certainly will hold our officers accountable. That's really the crux of this whole thing. We're talking about accountability.
Now, we asked Chief Pazin a couple of things. One, do your officers wear body cameras through the course of this? He told us today that yes, they do, but they only engage those body cameras when there is force necessary. Two, we asked about the other agencies that are here. We saw Aurora Police, Adams County Sheriff, a lot of different agencies in Denver this weekend. Do they have to follow the same use of force rules as Denver police officers? Chief Pazin told us they each have a DPD supervisor with them to try to make sure that they are following the force and understand the use of force policy in the city of Denver, Kyle.
To be clear, Steve, so it's up to each individual officer then to say, I'm about to use force, click it on.
Yes. And you imagine when you're wearing riot gear, this was one of the things the chief said, it's difficult to figure out where to place that body camera, how to mount that body camera when you're wearing riot gear. In the moment, those officers, when they're going to engage, according to policy, according to the chief, they are to pop their body camera on.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Denver police are also promising another internal investigation into what appears to be a Denver officer's Instagram post showing officers in riot gear with the caption, "Let's start a riot." Somebody who saw the post took a screenshot, shared it on Reddit. That was then brought to our attention by quite a few of you. Chief Pazin says it's not a free speech issue. DPD has a policy against posts like that. Colorado's media organizations have written a letter to the police chief, to Denver's mayor, as well as the governor, requesting an investigation into the targeting of journalists who are trying to document police actions in Denver's streets. The media groups provided a list of examples of journalists, including some from 9 News, who were clearly identified as media working in the field when those journalists were targeted with pepper rounds, non-lethal projectiles, and tear gas. Denver police say that they have caught the driver who intentionally hit 3 of their officers Saturday night. Anthony Knapp is the man who's being held on assault charges. There was also a civilian hit in that crash. Now, police were originally looking for a car with Wyoming plates. They say that Knapp's vehicle had front-end damage consistent with the crash, yet it had Colorado plates. Officers say then they searched his apartment and found a set of Wyoming plates. Still no arrest made or determination made public in the situation from Thursday, the widely seen video where a driver appeared to veer to hit a protester. The man who jumped on the hood Thursday told us he did that because the driver accelerated and he had nowhere to go. Protesters outside of the White House were tear gassed tonight so that the president could walk across the street to a church for a photo op where he held a Bible in the air. It was minutes after the president said that he will invoke the Insurrection Act in order to deploy U.S. troops into American cities. The act was last used during the Rodney King riots in 1992. Today, peaceful protesters were gathered near the White House and they were taken out by police using these methods and others as the president came out to the Rose Garden for his announcements and then the walk for that photo op outside St. John's Church. The church was set on fire after protesters and police clashed there over the weekend. Well, we were right about what was happening with that heavy equipment brought into RTD's Civic Center station over the weekend. RTD confirmed today that the city was, in fact, covering up rocks on the property so that those rocks could not be picked up by the crowd and thrown at police. 3 officers were injured Thursday night, 1 that we know of Friday night. They came this morning to clean up. People from Denver, people from outside Denver, some people who had protested in the streets, some people who hadn't. They came to clean up the damage to the city they love. Our Byron Reed took his camera and went to talk to the volunteers.
Once my dad told me, he's like, you want to go volunteer? I'm like, yeah, let's go for it. And we're going to go see if there's any more cleaning up to do. So we brought my cousin and my other cousin, so we brought like 5 volunteers in to come help. As soon as we got here at 7 a.m., there was already people cleaning up, and there was a whole line back there. A lot of vandalism with the historical areas, a lot of trash, and the places that we love.
We think that a lot more people should give out the love for here, and maybe we won't have all this other negativity that's going on around us.
I grew up here since I was little, and I'd never been to the Capitol myself, and now that I pass by all the time, but now that I see it, it's like all these historical things that I grew up and saw is all like vandalized. That kind of broke my heart, because it's like, that has nothing to do with what's going on.
Just give back to the community. All the riding and breaking glasses and windows and all that, it's unnecessary.
Yeah, it's gonna get restored again, but I mean, you see the community come after a horrified riot. A lot of people are throwing a whole bunch of cups, water bottles. I know we found a bag full of toilet paper and it was wet, so we're like, we don't know what that was. I think what we're trying to put out there is no matter how bad you destroy our city, our community is going to come together to build it up again.
We need to step up to the plate and show the young generation what's going on in this world.
The community loves our city. The community is going to come together and clean it up either way. If it gets destroyed every single day, every single month, every single year, we're not going to stop until our city is clean again.
Things will die out. We're a beautiful race, and we should help and get back to a beautiful place where we're at.
It kind of made my heart a little bit warmer, because it's like, even after vandalizing, you see a lot of people that want to come back and help and make Colorado beautiful again.
The people who fight police brutality in court tell us about a big shift over the last decade. And former Governor Hickenlooper is down to his last chance to get out of testifying at his ethics hearing this week. Former Governor John Hickenlooper has been subpoenaed to appear at his ethics hearing on Thursday. His attorney is planning to go to court to fight it. Hickenlooper's right in the middle of a Democratic Senate primary, and he's been refusing to testify at this remote hearing on whether he accepted illegal gifts while in office. Hickenlooper's legal team says a video hearing instead of in person violates his rights to due process. And they say the video glitches could make it tough for Colorado's Independent Ethics Commission to gauge his testimony. Last week, Hickenlooper's campaign manager would not say if he would hide out to avoid being served with a subpoena. His attorney tells me they'll waive service, so that won't be an issue, but they are going to fight it in court. I'll be moderating a debate next Tuesday night between former Governor Hickenlooper and his Democratic Senate opponent, former State House Speaker Andrew Romanoff. That debate will air statewide on 9 News and on our partner media outlets. Hickenlooper and Romanoff are competing for the Democratic nomination to face Republican Senator Cory Gardner come November. Our Democratic Senate primary debate is Tuesday, June 9th at 6:30 p.m. on 9 News. Denver has had George Floyd's for years. Black men who have died at the hands of law enforcement, who either quickly or belatedly admit wrongdoing. Civil rights attorney David Lane tells our Marshall Zellinger that getting justice is getting easier.
Success in a protest means that it changes police behavior.
You'll likely recognize David Lane because he and his law firm have sued cities, police departments, and sheriff's offices over excessive force. Lawsuits that he admits are easier today than decades ago.
We got to the point where we would not take cases if there was no corroborating evidence in the form of an independent witness. The police would come in and test a lie, is what we used to call it.
Get down! Until cell phones, and now body-worn cameras on officers.
They exonerate good police, they convict bad police. Proving or disproving a case has become quite simple.
Video. It's video that revealed what happened to Michael Marshall and Marvin Booker in Denver's jail. Both died after a use of force was used while in custody. Between the two cases, the city paid out more than $10 million in settlements to the families. Mayor Michael Hancock has called what happened to George Floyd with Minneapolis police officers murder. On Friday, Kyle followed up with the mayor with a question asked at an earlier news conference about deaths at the hands of Denver law enforcement.
So I'll ask you here, was Marvin Booker murdered? Michael Marshall, was he murdered? Was Jesse Hernandez murdered at the hands of Denver officers?
Those individuals were, yes, murdered by police officers. I got to tell you that today the city of Denver has a much stronger and much deeper policy because of, unfortunately, the deaths of those individuals in our communities while interacting with police officers.
Why did you fight us tooth and nail in federal court on both of those cases, Mayor Hancock? Why are they still working for Denver, Mayor?
7 of the 8 deputies involved in the Booker and Marshall incidents are still employed by the city of Denver.
Police brutality has not increased over the years. It is simply the public's awareness of police brutality, thanks to videoing, that has increased.
Being in politics, Kyle, I understand that when lawsuits are involved, you have to be careful with your wording. But now that the mayor has used the term murder, I reached out to his office to see if he thinks that a prosecutor should be pursuing charges against any of those involved in those previous cases. I was told I would be getting an answer, but I don't have that answer yet.
I got the sense, Marshall, they didn't like the question.
That's true. They didn't like it. But I still expect an answer.
Okay. Well, yeah. Probably means it was a good question. All right. Thank you, Marshall. It's a call for the people in the streets to go get tested for COVID-19. We're going to take a look at Colorado's hospitalization and testing numbers in a moment. Colorado's public health leaders say we should know in about 2 weeks if all the mass gatherings in Denver streets are going to cause a spike in COVID-19 cases. Both the protester and the mayor are urging anybody who was out there to go in and get tested for free. People with symptoms should get tested immediately. Without symptoms, public health experts say you should wait 7 days and then go get tested. That free testing outside the Pepsi Center in Denver does require that you register online first. Colorado did not meet its testing goal for May, and now, as we begin June, Colorado is still short of its goal of testing 8,500 people a day. The most recent data shows they get close on Saturday, about 7,500 tests. Yesterday, they tested about 5,000 people. In total, 188,000 Coloradans have been tested for COVID-19. Encouraging news when it comes to hospitalizations. We continue to see that downward trend. There are currently 272 people being treated in the hospital for coronavirus. 30 of them were sent home or transferred within the last 24 hours. We're back in a moment to take another look at the state of the protests going on in Denver streets right now and your feedback next. Protesters have again gathered outside the state capitol, the nexus of protests, since last Thursday. Looks like they've built some type of memorial likely there on the steps outside the Capitol building. Denver's curfew tonight has been shifted to 9 o'clock. That curfew extended through Friday. Police telling us it will only be enforced in that downtown area where they're dealing with protests. We are hoping for a peaceful night for all involved. We haven't had one since last Wednesday. Reed Brown writes in, you asked us to do an act of kindness on Friday after peacefully protesting in solidarity with Black Lives Matter during the day. We came back to Civic Center on Sunday morning to help clean up some of the mess left behind by the unfortunate few who caused the damage. Tom says back in the day, the press would wear hats and shirts that said press, wondering about us being targeted by officers. Trust me, Tom, the folks that are getting popped out there are well identified. I'll see you next time.